Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon is in the works. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul is also rumoured to be in the works, although I hope it's not true. And Nate Diaz won't be fighting at UFC 272. I thought I'd break down all of these stories and more on today's MMA news reaction video, starting with Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon in the works for UFC London on March the 19th. Now, Paddy Pimblett's manager says they haven't agreed on it yet, which is why I've only said it's in the works. This initially came out as a story saying that it was made and set for UFC London because Dana White told the Stall Presidente, Dave Portnoy, the owner of Barstool, that it was going to happen next. Jared Gordon would be the next opponent for Paddy Pimblett. We know they want to put him on that UFC London card because why wouldn't they? But it hasn't been made yet, and Paddy Pimblett's manager hasn't agreed to it yet, which tells me that they're not saying it's not going to be Jared Gordon next, but what they are saying is, we need a little bit more money. We're trying to negotiate some things. They'll probably get a nice little pay jump for Paddy Pimblett. I don't see him being treated like an ordinary fighter that has to go through a contract normally. Like, I think he last fought for 20 for 20. He should be at least getting like 50 for 50 for his fights at this point. He's a massive star overnight. Of course, the UFC can claim that they made that happen, but I believe this story is probably going to be true. Gordon will probably take on Paddy Pimblett at UFC London because Dana White told the Stall Presidente, the owner of Barstool Sports. Of course, Barstool Sports sponsor Paddy Pimblett. They own a bit of Paddy Pimblett. They're helping build him up. He's one of their guys now. He's on the team of Barstool Sports. So if you're going to tell anyone who's next for Paddy Pimblett, you're probably going to tell the truth to the people that bought him, pretty much, in Barstool Sports, and Dana has a good relationship with Dave Portnoy as well, so I don't think this is a throwaway comment. We've seen Paddy Pimblett mention Jared Gordon before. It was rumoured to happen. Gordon wouldn't mind taking on Paddy Pimblett. They've gone back and forth. I feel like this fight's going to be happening. They just don't want to announce it yet until it's officially done. We've seen this happen many times before. It's a good matchup for Paddy Pimblett, and he said he wants to take on Jared Gordon as well, so I think this matchup's going to take place next. It's in the works now. They're trying to get things agreed by Paddy Pimblett's manager, but this is what the UFC is offering as the next opponent for Paddy Pimblett. Of course, it was going to be Donald Cerrone. I'm kind of glad it's not Donald Cerrone because, again, Jared Gordon is not an easy test. Donald Cerrone, if he lost to Paddy Pimblett by first round KO, the story wouldn't be how good Paddy Pimblett is. It would be, Cerrone's washed up. How bad Cerrone looked again. Man, Cerrone just can't stop getting finished in the first round and all that kind of stuff. So for Paddy Pimblett, although it's a big name that he would like to take on, obviously, because of the name value, he could boost himself up even more. He could try and finish him faster than McGregor and stuff like that, although it is a tough test. There's no upside to beating Cerrone outside of the name value. If you really want to jump up the lightweight division and get towards those rankings at this point and beat a decent opponent that's going to get you a lot of credit, Jared Gordon is that opponent. Now, he's not the best lightweight in the world. However, he is a lightweight who's on a 3-fight win streak within the UFC against okay opponents. In Joe Solecki's a good opponent, 11-2 at the time, 11-3 Danny Chavez, and 18-3 Chris Fishgold. He's beaten some really commendable opponents, although not looking very impressive against them. He's still beaten them, and his last loss was to Charles Oliveira, and one of his other losses in his career is to Diego Ferreira. So if you can add yourself amongst those names, you can start calling some shots in the lightweight division and getting some good matchups for yourself. And maybe in the meantime they could do Donald Cerrone, and this is what I've wanted to see for a very long time. They've still got Jeremy Stephens signed to the UFC. Let's do Donald Cerrone versus Jeremy Stephens at lightweight around the same time, maybe on the pay-per-view card, on the prelims of the pay-per-view card around March anyway. Then we can do Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon, and if Pimblett wins against Jared Gordon, which I believe he actually will because it's a great matchup for him, if he can win against Jared Gordon, I believe then you look for the winner of Stephens versus Cerrone for Paddy Pimblett because they're a big name. They'd be coming off a win. People wouldn't say that they're completely washed up again because if Cerrone beats Stephens, he's back in the mix, he's looking good again. Then you can have Paddy Pimblett maybe beat him and use the name value there once he's coming off a win so it looks a little bit better. But this is a great opponent for Paddy Pimblett. I do believe he would beat Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's had a bit of a chin issue in his career. And let's just say the opponents that he's beaten, they're bottom feeder UFC opponents, really. He's proven that he's above those level of guys. So this is a step up for Paddy Pimblett. I believe he's ranked something in like the top 40 in the lightweight division right now, which is not something to scoff at, you know. I'll just check it right now. Jared Gordon's beat some really good opponents. He's lost to really good opponents. Right now, he's currently ranked number 30 in the world, in the lightweight division in the UFC at least, not in the world of course, but within the UFC, he's ranked number 30, and there are 80 lightweights on the roster, so he's up there. This is not a gimme fight for Paddy Pimblett, but I do believe it's a great matchup for him. And maybe Gordon's level of opponents that he's beaten shouldn't have put him that high up the rankings. I think Gordon's stand-up is pretty average. His grappling is also very average. It's not like he schools people on the ground. He just sort of lays on top of them. He might miss weight and then use that to lay on top of someone for like a little bit of control time. Like he's barely eking out these wins that he's getting over these opponents. I think Paddy Pimblett, what people forget about him is he's a grappler. That's his main thing. He's a great grappler. That's his plan A. I don't see Jared Gordon out grappling Paddy Pimblett, and I have just not seen anywhere near the level of stand-up necessary to assume that Jared Gordon could beat Paddy Pimblett on the feet. I think Pimblett would beat him on the feet. He's got a solid chin. Gordon doesn't have the most power in the world. Gordon does have quite good cardio that he can push on his opponents, but it's not a crazy pace, and I mean, we've seen Paddy Pimblett go 5 rounds against Soren Bak, I believe, so that was way earlier in his career. I trust him to go 3 rounds within the UFC, plus Gordon's pace isn't too aggressive, so I could see Paddy Pimblett winning this one however he wants to. I would assume by KO on the feet. I think Jared Gordon is susceptible to some shots on the feet, although it's a good step up in competition. It's a fight that they could just make and get it to happen because, of course, if you try and find a great opponent for him or someone who's a massive name, they're going to have all of these demands, like, I want this amount of money. Jared Gordon's like one of those guys where he kind of has to do what he's told. He's not a big name. No one really cares about him. It's not like he has any negotiation power within the UFC. He wants to fight with Paddy Pimblett anyway, so it's all set up. Make it happen at UFC London. It's not a big fight on the card. I think it will be somewhere on the feature fight position or the main card opener because we're going to have Aspinall versus Shamil Abdurakhimov, 2 ranked contenders. Darren Till versus Uriah Hall. I think Arnold Allen versus Dan Hooker might be happening, and that'll probably be in the co-main event. So this will probably be opening up the main card. So it's not the co-main event or main event position that Paddy Pimblett wanted, but it's good. It's a good in the meantime fight, and then we can have him versus the winner of Cerrone versus Stevens in the middle of the year, maybe on like the opener of the main card of the pay-per-view, International Fight Week in July. We'll see what goes down. But I'm looking forward to this matchup, man. Really good fight. I think Pimblett's going to get by him. And if he does get by him, I just want more activity. I think he fought in August. So, like, it's been a while since we've seen Pimblett. Maybe the start of September, I'm not too sure. I can't quite remember. But it's been around 6 months by the time we get to March before we've seen Pimblett. And he wasn't injured. So I'd like to see him get back in there more often, be more active next year. Hopefully 3 fights next year would be ideal. I reckon he beats Jared Gordon, though. It's a good matchup for him. And also, they're probably going to talk a little bit of shit as well, because Jared Gordon can talk a bit of shit and be a bit aggressive. And he's not just some normal guy. So he's going to bring a bit of flavour to it. I don't think he's going to win. But it's a good way to get Pimblett up the rankings and set him up for a bigger fight down the line. Moving on to another topic of discussion, which is Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. This just angered me to see, but I saw it. It got posted yesterday. Apparently, according to BoxingInsider.com, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson's in the works, and I'll read some of the comments reacting to this. Why is he continuing to fight old people? Dude. Crazy to me. If this happens and Jake wins, I'll cry, someone else says. Who the fuck asked for that? We can't keep letting Jake get away with this, man. These are the same people, about a month ago, or a couple of weeks ago even, where when Jake Paul mentioned fighting Mike Tyson, seemed to really like the idea of it happening, because they wanted Mike Tyson to destroy him, and they believed that Mike Tyson would destroy him. Now, all of a sudden, that it's in the works, no one wants to see this fight anymore. It's almost as if people are in denial about the somewhat capable ability of boxing of Jake Paul, and now realise that it's in the works. They realise that he has a really solid chance to KO Mike Tyson because of what just happened to Evander Holyfield against Vitor Belfort. Now, of course, Jake Paul is not at that level, but it takes a good shot on an old man, and Mike Tyson's not young anymore. And if he's going to be roiding up for the event, I suppose Jake Paul's going to take some roids as well, because Mike Tyson genuinely won't be able to make it to the event without taking roids. he's obviously on a lot of roids. Like, if he stops taking those roids, I'm assuming he's on TRT and shit like that. If he stops taking them, he's gonna be a shell of himself out there. He's not gonna be in the shape that he's in right now, so that opens the doorway for Jake Paul to take a few roids as well, and why wouldn't you if you know Mike Tyson's gonna be on some stuff? Jake Paul's got a solid chance of beating him. I don't want to see it yet. I don't mind the idea of it, though. It's a big matchup. It's a really big matchup. Maybe you could do Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on the main event. Logan Paul versus Anderson Silva in the co-main event. What a stupid fucking world we're in, but here we are. Yeah, I just find it really funny, though. I love seeing this shit where these fights get made, but before this fight was being made and it was just being discussed, people saw it as a joke and that it would never happen. And they were saying that Mike Tyson would just destroy him. Calm down, Jake, you'll get destroyed. And now it's, why is he fighting old people, huh? That's the top comment. All of these people were talking about how Mike Tyson would destroy Jake Paul while he was just calling out Mike Tyson for a matchup, maybe. But now it's in the works. There's this all of a sudden change of tone from the social media community. Very interesting. We can't keep letting Jake get away with this. Very interesting. Now, I think this is going to happen. Mike Tyson was looking to fight Evander Holyfield, but Evander Holyfield came back before to try and get, I guess, a warm-up against Vitor Belfort on short notice for the Mike Tyson fight because he thought he was going to win, and he looked fucking shit as an old man. Tyson's also old, and that Roy Jones fight was completely rigged and scheduled to go a certain way, and they weren't allowed to throw full power punches at each other. So, if this is a real fight, where Jake Paul actually has a chance to go out there roided up to try and KO Mike Tyson, he's got a decent chance. I wouldn't pick him to. I'd actually still pick Mike Tyson because I just think having that base of fundamentals over his life, he probably would get a first round finish against Jake Paul still. But, like, how's his cardio going to be in, like, a full high-paced fight, throwing heat and feeling the fear of heat coming back maybe by Jake Paul? I know this is a weird world that we're in that I'm even fucking discussing this, but Mike Tyson, I reckon, would beat Jake Paul, but I think people realise with this matchup, there's a solid chance he doesn't, and there's a solid chance that Jake Paul is stood over a lifeless body of Mike Tyson, and then moving on can say that he KO'd Mike Tyson, and that's a really harsh reality for many, including myself. I would not like to see that, although it would be really funny. Interesting matchup. Interesting matchup to make next. It is a step up in competition. You can't deny it. I mean, fight a real boxer. I mean, I don't know what Mike Tyson's pro record was, but if Jake Paul can win this one, it's going to be a pro matchup, and he will have beaten 50-6 Mike Tyson, former heavyweight champion of the world, with great wins on his career against some decently good names. So, yeah, we'll see what goes down. Better than Tommy Fury, though, I just know that. I know it's better than Tommy Fury, better than Dylan Dennis. Let's make this matchup happen. And Mike Tyson can be the hero for everyone again, I guess, but I don't know if I really want to see it. We'll see what fucking happens. Yeah, I don't know. Moving on to another fucking story. Hopefully that don't fucking happen. But Nate Diaz won't return at UFC 272 because he's Nate Diaz and he's a child. Not surprised, man. I'm not surprised, motherfucker. This was never going to happen. It was a nice hope. I wanted it to happen. I believed it maybe could, because it was like rescheduled. So I was like, oh well, when you reschedule something, it's like you fix a problem. Like, oh, it's not going to happen at 271 where we wanted it to happen, but we're now going to do it at 272, which told me that hey, they think it's going to happen at 272. There was a problem with 271. Now they're trying a different date. I'm assuming they're both in fight camp if they were on the idea that they were going to fight each other. I mean, it's not that long away. 272 is in, like, what, the middle of March? Early March? We've not got that long. You know what I mean? We've got about 2 months. That's about a training camp. So, I'm assuming Dustin Poirier's already started sort of getting into a training camp under the belief that he will be fighting Nate Diaz. But apparently there's no chance Nate Diaz will fight at UFC 272, according to Ariel Helwani, who doesn't typically lie about these things. But, you know, Nate Diaz just won't fight anyone because he's such a gangster. God, what a gangster move by Nate, not fighting again. Wow, that guy's really fucking tough, dude. Nate does what he wants, and it's not fighting. Because he don't fight. I want to fight in December. Get me anyone in December. I'll take on Luque. Sure you will, dude. You won't fight Luque. Oh, there's no fucking Luque fight. All good. Hey, give me this guy. I'll fucking take him on. Yeah, let's fucking run it. Right, well, that's not happening in January, is it, Nate? Okay, cool. Well, maybe Dustin Poirier in fucking February. We'll turn it right back around and get this done. You're a bitch, Dustin. Let's make it happen. Alright, well, Nate's not fighting at that fucking one either. Right, let's do it in March then. March. Yeah, I'm a fucking gangster. Let's fight in March. I'll beat up Dustin Poirier in March. You're going to get it. UFC weren't willing to pay you to fight on February. We're going to do it in March. Right, well, that's not fucking happening either. So this Nate Diaz, who wanted to fight before the end of the year in 2021, all of a sudden doesn't want to fight January, February, March. Very strange. Almost as if he's completely fronting the whole thing, calling out random names, delaying their fucking career, and then just backing out and not really signing paperwork or actually fighting them. You just signed a It can't be money. What is it? It must just be cowardice. You don't want to fight the top names because you think you're going to lose. I think he would have a good chance at beating Dustin Poirier. I really do believe he'd have a great chance in beating Dustin Poirier, but it can't be money. He just re-signed a contract. He could have gone, but he's back in the UFC. Signed a long contract, wants to stay within the UFC. Why sign that and stay here if you weren't going to fight? You want to fight December, not December, January. You want to fight January against Luque, not January, February against Poirier. Right, Luque's been delayed by 5 fucking months now. He wanted to fight before the end of the year. He thought he was going to fight you. Now there's no fucking fight for Vicente Luque. And he's just sat out on the sidelines. Probably going to have to rematch fucking Bilal Muhammad. Which I don't need to see because he destroyed him the first time anyway. But Nate Diaz wants to fight in February against Dustin Poirier. No, he doesn't. It's March. So I don't know what's going on with Nate Diaz. I would assume maybe it's an ego thing. He doesn't want to be on the undercard of Masvidal and Covington because he's bitter that Masvidal beat the shit out of him, fucking bell to bell, and absolutely embarrassed and obliterated him and made him into a bloody pulp in front of the world for a BMF title, which is still quite cringy to me. I don't like the idea of the BMF belt. But, you know, Nate Diaz won't be coming back at 272. So moving on to something fucking else. Maybe that, I don't know what that means though, right? That just ruins that card. What else is going to be on that March pay-per-view card? I can't think of any fighters that are ready to go in 8 weeks. Rockhold Vettori? I don't know if Rockhold's ready. Like, there's no real big fights they can put on that card. O'Malley's injured. Nate Diaz, Poirier aren't fighting. I doubt maybe Poirier will stay on the card and... You know what? Poirier Luque. I know it's not a big name for him, but if he's going to get paid the same anyway... Fight fucking Vicente Luque. I think Poirier gets pay-per-view shares. Why wouldn't you want to be on the co-main event of Covington Masvidal? It's probably going to do 800,000, 700,000. I don't think it's going to break 1 million, but it's going to get close. So why wouldn't you want to be on that co-main event anyway when you're getting pay-per-view shares? I say they just do Luque versus Poirier and just fucking make fights between people who actually want to fucking fight and aren't cowards. Do you know? I'm joking though, of course. He's not a coward. He fights for a living, but... Fucking acting like one. What's going on? I can't think about it. There's no money issue. You re-signed a contract. It's not a time issue. You've rescheduled this bout 4 fucking times, or a bout 4 fucking times, later and later and later. One can only assume you don't want to fucking fight these people. I've run out of ideas. Or it's just an ego thing. You don't want to be on the co-main event. But then what was the problem with fucking February? It can't be the same problem. I don't get it. Whatever. Moving on to another thing that happened, which is... one thing. Just thought I'd touch on this. Kayla Harrison won't be signing to the UFC. I guess Nunes losing ruined that one. And Ngannou will convert half of his next UFC paycheck into Bitcoin. The champ, in alliance with Cash App, will also be giving out 300k in Bitcoin to fans, according to a report by Ariel Helwani. I understand this. But that comment's actually perfect. Next week after Bitcoin falls 5.3%. The UFC don't pay us. I'm broke and borrowing money to survive. Dude, if you're investing half of your fucking fight purse into Bitcoin, and you're willing to take that gamble. It's not a gamble, I understand. It's trustworthy. People in Bitcoin are going to say, it's not a fucking gamble, bro. It's better than a bank. Whatever they fucking say. If you're willing to be doing that with investments, like I'll just fucking half up the paycheck I get, put it into Bitcoin. Dude, you're being paid good. Like, what? You can't do... Dude has a 400k watch, a G-Wagon, a mansion in different areas around the world, and he's complaining about money, but here he is, half of his fucking paycheck into Bitcoin just cause. I guess he's being paid to do this, though, I would imagine, right? Put half your paycheck into Bitcoin to be shown that you're putting half your paycheck into Bitcoin. We're going to give you half the paycheck worth to do this, to cover you, because we just need the advertisement. Also, by the way, give some to your fans to get them hooked in investing in Bitcoin as well. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And Ngannou just really struggling out here on these streets, you know. Lonesome UFC employee streets. Real rough out here, you know. Really fighting for the scraps. Giving half your fucking income to Bitcoin for one fight. All good though. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.